So let's carry on. This is the second lecture on the chapter of social psychology. And we left off the first chapter talking about person perception and social categorization. And here I want to move on talking about some more specifics about attribution. I have after this lecture, you'll find a couple activities specific to attribution. So attribution is a sort of a big term, and it refers to how people assign or how they attribute explanation for someone's behavior or cause of their behavior. And there's something called a fundamental attribution error, or sometimes it's called fundamental attribution theory. And the point is that sort of when we going back to the first lecture when we were talking about person perception and how we perceive people is partly determined by what our goals in the situation are. Attribution is a specific aspect of that person perception, and it says that we will attribute people's behavior to different characteristics. Specifically, what fundamental attribution error says is that when it's someone else, let me make sure I got this right, when it's someone else, we will attribute their behavior to something that is internal and consistent. Yes, internal and consistent. When it's us, we will attribute our behavior, we will explain our behavior to something that is external and temporary. So this should sound kind of familiar. It should sound a little bit like when we were talking about personality and stress, when we were discussing pessimism and optimism. So what fundamental attribution theory says is that when I am getting angry at the cashier at the grocery store, when it's me, or when it's you, right? When it's the self getting angry, it's because it is something that is external and temporary. So someone is being rude to me. That's why I'm getting angry. But when I observe someone else getting angry, it's because that person is a little crazy and they do this all the time, right? So that's the fundamental attribution error. We explain our behavior differently than we explain someone else's behavior. Actor-observer discrepancy, or sometimes it's called actor-observer bias, is basically, it's along the same lines, and it says that if I'm the person doing it, I will explain the situation more favorably to me than if I'm watching someone do it. So if I'm the one acting badly, I really am not acting that badly, and it's because of somebody else. But if I'm watching somebody act badly, man, they are really out of control. What's wrong with them? Instead of me seeing that it's the context. But when it's me, it's temporary, and I see the context, right? And the reason these biases are important is because, again, it's sort of like that stereotype thing, right? It's sort of like that we hold people differentially responsible for their situation. So you've probably heard the phrase blame the victim. And blaming the victim is, so the lady, you're watching this person get angry at the cashier at the grocery store, and they're explaining that they're getting angry because they're claiming they're being treated badly, but instead of feel bad for them, right, because somebody treated them badly, we blame them for the reason people treated them badly is because look at that lady, she's crazy. So we're blaming, or it's like blaming the poor person for being poor. Instead of feeling empathetic and compassion and offering help, we say, well, they must have done something, it's all their fault, right? I would hope you've heard the phrase blame the victim before. This is one that gets tossed around a lot when we're talking about sexual assault. You know, when a woman or when a victim of sexual assault is accused of asking for it by the way that they dress, right? They're the victim, but we're blaming them for this bad thing that happened to them. Hindsight bias is another way that we explain what's happened to us, and it's the phrase that hindsight is 20/20, right? Hindsight bias. We always overestimate our ability that we could have done this and we would have had a different outcome, and we have a tendency to do that more after something that's like, if I would have done this, the outcome would have been completely different. And chances are when you were in that situation, you did the best you could. All right, so we're biased towards thinking, oh, I made a mistake, I should have done something different would have, and this can keep us in a fairly poor mental health state when we're constantly blaming ourselves and we should have done something and it's already after the fact. A just world hypothesis. Now, there is also an activity that invites you to explore, or sometimes it's called the just world belief. And the people, how you score on a just world hypothesis, it sort of predicts your tendency to support like blame the victim ideology. But what it says is people that the world is fair and that you get what you deserve, that the world is just, right? And so folks that have a strong just world hypothesis that score really high on that idea are less likely to offer assistance because people get what they deserve. Or if you don't embrace a just world hypothesis, and we believe that sometimes, really bad things happen to innocent people. What that scale does is it invites you to take that assessment and see where you score. The research on just world hypothesis does predict that certain people groups, specifically women, well, I should say it in reverse, that men have a tendency to score higher on a just world hypothesis, and white people have a tendency to score higher on a just world scale. People of color, women, poor people have a tendency to score lower, implying that for them the world does not seem so fair, right? The just world hypothesis. So there's the classic experiment, and when we talk about helping behavior, I'll hold off until we get to that, but there's a classic experiment where they set it up to, and they had, like, on one side of the train station, they had this a person who's fallen down and their cane's laying next to them. The other side of the train station, person dressed the same, except in this case they have a bag lying next to them that appears to be a bottle of alcohol. And just world hypothesis would predict that you're going to help the person that appears to have fallen at no fault of their own, and you're not going to help the person who appears to be drunk because the world is fair, the world is just, and they got what they deserve. Right? That's really what that one says. And then self-serving bias speaks to basically fundamental attribution theory, and it says that when it's me, right, fundamental attribution theory and active observer, when it's me, it's not my fault, but when it's you, it is your fault, and that's what self-serving bias says. All of these things that we've just talked about are attitudes, and attitudes are simply ideas, right? These are ideas, these are beliefs that we've learned. We think about attitudes as having, it breaks them down into these three components. This should sound a little bit familiar because when we're talking about emotions, we also talked about components, right? One thing that predicts our attitudes towards other people are cognitions, our beliefs, how we feel, our emotions, and then how we act. So when we talk about prejudice and discrimination, prejudice is an idea, discrimination is an action, right? So our thoughts about somebody, how those thoughts make us feel, and then that will be informed by our behavior. And the thing is that these work in sort of a cyclical, they sort of work like a cycle. So when we're not a cycle, but a reciprocal determination, going back to social cognitive theory. The beliefs that we hold will be acted upon. There's actually some barriers that predict how we will act upon our beliefs. One is if we think, so that's them right there. One is if we think that people will react positively towards my belief, right? Towards my action. If I'm going to get, people are going to like me. If they are very extreme or frequently expressed. So if I say this a lot, or if I think this a lot, I'm more likely to continue to think it, right? If I have come to my belief based on something that I have experienced, if I've lived it, I'm going to express it more. If I know a lot about it, or if the belief that I have will be affected if my life will be affected by more people acting in a certain way. So I guess I could use, phrases about gender equity. right? If I'm likely to benefit, and a woman is likely to benefit from a more gender equitable society, and I know quite a bit about it, I've taught about it for 20 years, I'm more likely to express it, I have a personal stake in the outcome, I'm very knowledgeable about it, I've generally had pretty positive responses about it, and I've experienced some of these things myself, right? Or the example that I have down here is why I don't go to Walmart. I'm not a big fan of Walmart. I haven't been for about 20 years, and I could give you a whole mini lecture on what's wrong with Walmart. And I'm more likely to express that today than I am 20 years ago, because 20 years ago it was really not cool to be anti-Walmart. Now it's more acceptable. I know a lot about it. I could talk about it for a long time. I don't have a personal stake in it. And I can't really say I've experienced it, but anyway, so that's what we mean by attitudes. I think I'm going to wrap this one up here, and when I come back, I want to talk about one of my very favorite phrases, and that is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. I'm going to stop right here.